This is America at Play, coming to you from the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, and I'm your host, Butch Cons. My co-host is Chris Cooper from Atlanta, Georgia, and our special guest tonight is journalist and Miami committee woman Angie Wong from Miami, Florida. Chris and Angie, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody can hear fine out there?
Yeah, I love
Sure
the
can.
background. Butch, you look great.
Oh, thank you.
Hi,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Nice
You
to meet
guys look
you.
good too.
Nice to meet you.
And in the background is our producer, my wife, Eileen Cons,
Hey,
that you can't
Eileen.
see.
There
Just to
we
let
go.
everybody know before we get started on this, as we are here tonight to talk politics. But I want to add one more thing about Chris and Angie. Chris is the president for Veterans for America First Georgia chapter. Angie is the president for Veterans of America First Florida chapter, and I am the national president. So, uh, people, let's talk politics. Let's have a little fun here. And by the
Yeah.
way, just so everybody knows, I do have a bourbon because talking politics
Oh,
nowadays, you got to drink something. So,
I didn't know it was that kind of show,
um,
Butch.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. We're going
Oh
to
man,
start
I wish I
out
had more than
with,
water.
well, hey, you can take a break real quick.
Right. I
Um,
know. I'm looking at some
we're
liquor
going to
right
start out
now.
with the USAID and what
Mm.
they call the waste of USAID. Now, I will say to both of you and to our audience, I think that is a generalization because everything that Elon Musk and his group is finding, it's not waste, it's theft.
Mhm.
And nobody wants to address the pink elephant in the room. But when we're giving $40 million to Iraq for Big Bird, or we're giving $20 million to Guatemala for sex change operations or education. Um, and the only ones not screaming about us cutting off the money are the countries that this money is supposed to be going to. You haven't heard one country, one group that this money is supposed to be going to complaining. All you're hearing is the libtards who, I'm sorry, they make it very obvious that they've been robbing that piggy bank for a long time.
Mhm.
No,
Chris, what's
absolutely.
your
You
thought
you
on it?
got it. You got it right. And you know what? We're gonna find out more and more. Look, I love that Elon Musk is in
Yeah,
there with the 19-year-olds basically doing the job of the government. This is how government works, you guys.
right.
It is about
Mhm.
efficiency. It you can't run a business like this, right? Butch and Chris, I don't know, if you ran a business like this, you'd be in the tank. Unfortunately, here in if you're working for the US government, it's a blank check, but it's of your money. And I think this is why you do need business leaders like Elon Musk and Donald Trump coming
Mhm.
in, going, I would never do this to my own company. Why are we doing it to
Correct.
this country? And that's what's
Mhm.
so, it's like Christmas every single day, every time like Doge goes in there and discovers something else. Look, I mean, as a journalist, it's like this is exactly the kind of stuff that we love. We love exposing these things. I have to wait for like, a 30-day FOIA request to get any sort of documentation. These guys are just
Mhm.
going in there. And you know what's really sad? I'm watching these Democrats melt down, right?
Oh
Today
yeah.
you
What
have
are they going to do
Adam
what to do?
Schiff going, Elon Musk is looking at your bank account. Elon Musk is taking all your personal information. Really? That's going to be the line to scare you into what? Voting out Elon Musk. I don't think he was voted in. And I love this argument that Democrats love to do, which is, well, who made Elon Musk king? Well, Donald Trump did. And the best part is you don't have to
Yeah.
elect and you don't have to appoint or give Senate confirmations to bureaucracy, right? Like, whoever was in charge of all of this stuff didn't have to get voted in. No, they got placed there by senior management, and that's Donald Trump.
Well,
Absolutely.
the other part that the other part before you get going, Chris, because I'm going to go to you next. But the other part about that is, you see the Democrats screaming and yelling. You got liberal justices trying to run interference. They have
Mhm.
no business in that. They have no say in that. A federal judge, unless it's the Supreme Court in this situation, has zip to say about it. And Trump is right by telling them, we're not listening to you. We're going to do what the hell we want to do, and we're going to do what the American people ask us to do. Chris, your thoughts on the
Yeah.
whole?
Yeah. So, a couple of thoughts on USAID. The Democrats are screaming about, oh, well, it's only, a very low percentage of the budget, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? It's the one that funds things that are too dirty for the CIA to do. Right. And that if you want a project the CIA won't touch, the USAID will. And they will find a way to money launder money through getting whatever job it is you need to get done. So I think it was a wise choice to go in there. Kind of like the prison rules. You walk into prison first day and you punch the biggest, baddest guy in the face. I think that's what they did. They kicked over the hornet's nest and said, "Hey, we're going to come after the slush funds first, and you're going to see how this is going to go." And so I think that is just an unbelievable, tactical good thing. I'll also point out, they're talking about the inexperienced or the young, folks that are being employed under Musk. And if you just take a minute and look at some of the pedigrees and backgrounds of these kids that are working, oh my goodness, they do things we're hope to aspire to in our 50s, right? So I think that's not a thing. But I was also doing a little research on our founding fathers, and I mean, the average tenure was in the low 20s of those that put the documents together that our country is founded on. So I think that's also a big deal. But I'm a huge fan of what's going on right now for sure.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. And here's the other thing, and the Democrats have got to be kicking themselves right now for stealing the election 4 years ago, because that gave Donald Trump 4 years to figure out what the swamp was, who the swamp was, and how to beat the swamp. And right now, that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? This is the window where he's notifying everybody in DC, hey, we know where where the bodies are buried. Now, I think I think Donald Trump's being a gentleman. I think he's saying, get out now, or we could do it my way. So that's why you're seeing all these houses being put up on the market around the DC area right now. The real estate market just shot
Oh,
up.
are they really? I did not know
Oh
that.
yeah, if you go on
yeah.
Zillow, every single thing. And when you look up who the home buyers are, which I've been poking around, it's all the
Right.
Democrat operatives, right? They have to get out of there as soon as possible. They know they have to liquidate. They know they have to leave DC and find some other career path. It is hysterical to watch. And honestly, I think it's time, right? Because we may not know everything.
Absolutely.
And that was the whole point, right? They were trying to keep the cloak on. It's now to discover what is going on with our tax dollars. I don't think left or right or center would ever disagree on that.
No, I don't know about left, Angie. I mean, left is disagreeing. That's what's cracking me up is they're all screaming and yelling, which tells me they're the ones with their hand in the cookie jar.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're right. They shouldn't have a problem with this, but they do. So that
the
tells
other
you, okay, who are the crooks? It's the ones screaming and yelling.
Always.
Kind of like somebody we know in Ackworth, Georgia. So
listen, but is that the case? You're right. You're right. You're right. When you catch a criminal, that is how they behave and act. They kick, scream, and accuse you of doing exactly what they're doing.
Correct.
Right. So it's funny because you have the Chuck Schumers of the world and the Maxine Waters. They're screaming, they're throwing their fist up in the air, going fight, 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 which is hysterical to me. And it's you're just directing us to where the crime happened, right? So you're going to see a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline where you're going to see a lot of the foreign money, American American tax-paying dollars going overseas to fighting all these wars being washed back into various organizations. And I've already heard this multiple times, very credible sources on the Capitol Hill. They're going to be investigating this. They're seeding the idea that we're doing an audit and DNC, you better be running right now because they already know what happened and they're giving the courtesy to get out. So what we're going to see, Butch and Chris, a lot of special elections, a lot of resignations, or a lot of prosecutions. You choose which journey you'd like to go on, Democrat.
You
And
know,
just to give you an example is let's just take Nancy Pelosi. Okay, she makes $225,000 a year. She's worth 202 million.
mhm,
How does that happen on that wage?
right. It doesn't.
I mean, it doesn't. And that's when you start adding those up and you start looking at their numbers, it's pretty obvious, folks. It's pretty obvious. And look, it's not just on the Democratic side. There's some people on the Republican side too, including Mitch McConnell.
Mhm.
I mean, this guy's worth
Oh yeah.
160 some $1 million. And come on. I mean, it's not grant you it's heavy on the Democrat side. But there's a few in there. I think
Oh
personally,
yeah.
I think that's why Romney got out.
Hmm.
Mm.
Hmm. The one
So
point that Angie made that I thought was pretty spot on though was how they're complaining about, oh well, he has or Musk has access to your data. The man ran PayPal, for Christ's
Yeah,
sake.
I was
I
just
mean,
you're right about that.
come
I know.
on.
Yeah.
Well, but
Yeah.
they're counting on
Yeah. He's
you
already
and
got it,
everybody.
folks.
Right, but they're counting on all of us to be that dumb to not know these things, right? So that they
Mhm.
can write the narrative because that's what, well, narcissists do, right? They want for you to
Yeah.
only believe in their own narrative,
Yeah.
not theirs. No, no, no. Don't go over there. Only our narrative matters. And that's what we were finding out with these Doge audits, right? So much of that money was going
Correct.
to PBS, going to Reuters, going to all our respectable, or what I would have considered back in the day, respectable news outlets. They were trying
Yes.
to control the narrative. And to me, that might be the most important thing that we can discover here because they were trying to narrative control, mind control, and then ultimately just gaslight you. But guess
Mhm.
what? More
Yep.
than half the country woke up in the last election cycle. We knew this was all BS, and we woke up to it and we were like, "No, I don't think don't try that on us." And I think that's why you
Mhm.
had a lot of
Don't insult my
crossover.
intelligence.
Right. And
Mhm.
that's why we had a lot of crossover voters from
Mhm.
Democrats, from independents, from people
Mhm.
who've never
Mhm.
voted before, voted for
That's right.
Trump.
Right. Young kids,
I
young
love it.
voters,
Let's
Right.
keep the trend going.
college age kids. Yeah,
No.
absolutely. Okay, let's jump to the next thing if we can. The DOJ um, prosecuting. Oh, wait a minute. I'm gonna skip over this. We're gonna come back to that. Let's
Okay.
talk about
Mhm.
Trump shutting down the Department of Education, which is in the talks right now, which I personally love for one simple reason. Out of the top 40 countries in the world, when Jimmy Carter started the Department of Education, we were number one.
Mhm.
Today, we are number 40. From
Mhm.
a business, Angie, as you said earlier, from a business aspect, because quite frankly, running a country is no different than running a business. It's just a hell of a lot bigger. Okay. If you're going to run it properly and you go from first to 40th, it's time to change something.
Right.
And what is the one thing that changed when we were first and we're now 40th? The Department of Education. Angie, what's your
Well,
thought on that?
we kind of Americans and American students, we are no longer competitive on the world market. We
No.
will
It's true.
not have a generation of kids and thinkers because guess what? You have you have other superpowers waiting, chomping at the bits to get in there to be number one. They're what are they teaching in their schools? Oh, let's see. AI, robotics, space
Mhm.
exploration. That's the language of my children, right? I may not understand
Right.
that, but we're still taking tests with number two pencils, and having to memorize like really basic math. Well, I will tell
Yeah.
you, I hate math, and I actually had to go to summer school for math, but that's a whole other issue. Um, I could just ask my phone what the math equation is, right? I never had to use math
Right.
in any real way as an adult. And, we have to just modernize all that. And it's important to say that Trump is not trying to get rid of education. I watched the Illinois Democrats
No.
do an hour long, probably longer, press conference on this very issue today. And they were trying to scare the public that public schools are going away. They're going to destroy public schools. Well, I don't think that's
Right.
exactly what Trump has in
Mhm.
mind. I think he was saying, well, parents should have school choice, right? And
Mhm.
I don't care if you're going to a public school or if you're
That's
going
right.
to a private school or a Catholic school or a Jewish
Mhm.
school. We're going to allocate X amount of dollars per child in this country for them to get an education. You, parent, you get to choose what type of education. That scares the living daylights out of Democrats because why?
Goodness.
They don't have control over our children and their minds.
You know, in
Well,
the
not only that, Angie, they don't have control of the unions, which are very strong in
Mm,
education. And with that control of the unions comes that vote of the union. They lose that when they lose this
right.
with the
you know
public education.
I
Chris, go
was,
ahead.
yeah, you stole my thing. No, I'm playing.
Sorry about
If you if you look at Breitbart, right? Breitbart used to say that the party that controls the culture controls the nation, right? And if you look at the previous years, what's happened culturally is that exactly right. The unions have been taken over nationally for in the Department of Education, and because of that, Democrat ideas, Democrat voters. There are these radical, wild, crazy things that our kids are being taught, and it's being pushed down into the culture. And so that's how you have all these children out there running around talking about free Palestine, and they don't even realize that there is no such thing as a Palestine. They're just so blind lead following what the Democrat message is through the Department of Education. So if it's divvied up and given down to the states, then it becomes more of a free market type idea where you know what, you don't like the education you're getting in New York, go to Georgia or go to North Carolina. Go uh, do what makes sense. But school choice
Go to
really
Catholic
bust that
school,
up.
go to private school. Yep. Yep.
Absolutely. But now you're really going to
And
bust that up when you start talking about the school choice, which Angie was spot on with.
right. Absolutely. And just to give an example of what you're saying, Chris, since COVID, okay, there are
Mhm.
still public school districts in this country pushing to have the kids learning from home. They still don't want to go back to the classroom. And here we are in 2025. Are you kidding me? You know,
Wow.
and and and,
Really?
and then they wonder why.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, there's a couple
Wow.
school districts, Angie, in New York
That are
Mhm.
still going
that
remote. Well, I
Mhm.
will tell you, my
correct.
kids were in New York City public school during the time of COVID, and it opened every parent's eyes because I just sit there in the kitchen with them, listening to what kind of lessons they were getting. I
Mhm.
on there were, I mean, if you saw me pacing around my house listening to the teachers speak, they did a month long George Floyd month, right? Where they it was all the teachings of George Floyd. I'm going, he has a month worth of like material to teach our children. Like it just made me crazy. And then my husband had to do DEI training for his company, and I had to listen to some Boston University professor get paid $350,000 an hour just so they can like talk about how you're bad and they're good and all this crap.
Mhm.
I just like went, oh man, I think I needed an addiction at that point. I was like, I need like some sort of vice to get me away from all this. But now, like
Oh,
we're learning what's
you
going
needed a
on.
bourbon.
I honestly, if I knew this was a drinking show, but I don't even know if I need drinks to get me going. Um, Public school officials have been exposed and they hate it and they
Oh
can't
God, yeah,
hide
Mhm.
the money anymore
yeah.
and they can't
Mhm.
wash the money anymore, which we're going to find very quickly why
Oh
Weingarten,
yeah,
who was the teachers union head, right, why she was in Kiev, I
yeah.
think the summer of 2022, what, vacationing with Chuck Schumer, right? Why was she
Mhm.
there? Because why not go to a war zone on your summer holiday, right? That makes perfect sense. Although I do like that kind of stuff. I personally like weird war
Well,
zone stuff, but that's me. We're gonna find out all sorts of things. And again, I hope you guys have your resumes ready because there's gonna be a lot of positions to fill up in the next few months. We are
well,
gonna get in there and clean it up.
20 years ago, I took a job just to help an inner city high school as a head football coach. I'm not a teacher. I just love sports and I love coaching. Okay. And what I learned, I took a job at this Osborne High School in the hood of Detroit. and they hadn't won a game in 6 years. I mean, it was a disaster. And what I learned while I was there is that if you become a principal at a Detroit public school and you're not a millionaire within 3 years, you're a moron. That's how much they were stealing the principals from the schools. And it was a known thing. It wasn't a big secret. That was
Huh.
20 years ago. And I've seen it with my own eyes. I've witnessed it. The corruption in
Hmm.
government at all levels has gotten so out of control. And I love the fact that Trump said he was going to empty the swamp, and by God, he's doing a hell of a job. So let's go to my favorite subject in the last month: deportation in the southern border. Chris, let's go to you first on this one. What's your thoughts on what Trump's doing on deporting, to start with, the criminal element, the gang element, and so forth as a starter? What's your thought on it?
Well, I think we're off to a fantastic start, but I think it, in order for deportation to work, we had to stop the bleeding. We had to stop what was coming in, and Holman and his team have just done an amazing job. We're in the hundreds within a month, coming in, as opposed to the thousands and thousands per day coming in. So now the focal element being on the most violent criminals first, then great. That is absolutely spot on. That is the way to handle it, and then you just start peeling back the onion one layer at a time, and you do this until it's back right. But this demographics is destiny thing is done, and it's the only way to have free and clear elections. That I think that it's going to help us with that. It's also going to help us with the congressional alignments and so forth and so on. But I totally agree. And any of these mayors that are standing in the way, I volunteer them to go to Gitmo. And that's instead of sending them, to a localized jail, put them in Gitmo and let them sit and think about it for a little bit. I guarantee you their tune will change.
Chris is absolutely right. I'm actually sitting right now on the northern border, and the issue has actually been pushed up north for those who are not really following the tracks in the migrations, right? So we know that the southern border, it's a military zone, right? For the most part, Trump did
Oh
what
yeah,
he was going to do and brought in the military and immediately shut that down. Okay, walls are going up. We're seeing all of it. It's very visual. Fox News is playing it every day. But on the northern border, we have a huge issue. Now, you think a lot of these migrants were
yeah,
coming
you do.
into Michigan, Chicago, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Maine. You think they're coming through from down there? No, they've rerouted. The coyotes
Hmm.
have not stopped. They're just walking through the woods of Vermont as we speak, right? So that's
Hmm.
what's going on. I was actually
Correct.
with DEA. I'm going to mess up his title, but the head of the DEA for New York, Frank Tarantino, yesterday, and he was saying that the fentanyl and the drug muling that hasn't stopped. That's an industry that they never ever want to stop. So I think it's time to shift to the northern borders to see what's going on here. There's still sanctuary cities up here, like Boston, for example, right? They're fighting tooth and
Right.
nail to make sure these illegals get their DMV driver's licenses and all the social services. Just yesterday, I was in New York touring some of the migrant hotels that are still
Hmm.
COVID, as in they're undercover. They're brand new hotels, some of them that never got their hotel licenses, or they're the Roosevelt Hotel, where I used to remember uh, my parents' friends getting married there. They're now completely
Yeah.
immigration brothels, pretty much, and it's really sad to see this. I get that there's an issue. I get that the mayors of every city, they're mandated to do something, but guess what? The gun is the gun to their heads is that they don't get money for their cities unless they bow down to allowing more and more illegals to come through.
Hmm.
So when you cut off the money, that's when they stop caring, right? And
Hmm.
same
I
thing
was
with
going to
the
say,
Board of
but
Education.
that's now stopping. Now that Trump's
Hmm.
in, the money's getting cut off, and they're throwing a fit about it. They're jumping up and down and screaming and yelling. But you said it earlier in your comment, Angie, about the northern border. Okay, I'm from Detroit.
Ah.
They've been coming over the Ambassador Bridge through the tunnel from the Windsor Tunnel, which goes under the Detroit River, the Blue Water Bridge up in St. Clair, the Sault Ste. Marie Bridge up in Sault Ste. Marie in the Upper Peninsula. This has been going on for decades. The largest Islamic Muslim population outside the Middle East in the entire world is in East Dearborn, Michigan, which
That's
butts
right.
up to Detroit, and it's about 20 minutes from the Ambassador Bridge. The
Yep.
first 3 people that were arrested after 911 were arrested less than 24 hours after 911 happened in East Dearborn, Michigan. So this has been going on for decades, and the fact that Trump is cleaning it up is awesome. I mean, Trudeau doesn't like it, but
Now, why doesn't
hey,
Trudeau like it? Wouldn't he want this problem out of his hands as well? I mean, he knows it's a problem. Why wouldn't he
he,
want to facilitate in this cleanup?
because okay, how can I explain this? Have you spent much time in Canada?
No?
Okay. Well, I have back in the day with Revolution Oil, okay, which was one of my companies. Canada is very, very European, okay, which
Mm.
means they are very liberal.
Mm.
Trudeau makes AOC and Maxine Waters look like Donald Trump. That's how liberal they are over there.
Really?
I
That's
laugh. Yes,
interesting.
I laugh. I had a lady on X today go on about how she hated America. She was from Canada, and how they didn't want to become the 51st state and blah blah blah. And I wrote back, and I don't think I made her very happy. I said, "We don't want you. Why would we want the debt of your socialist country? Because they are socialists. I have a very good friend over there that was actually played in the NHL. He's very successful, owns a golf course, owns a couple of other businesses. He absolutely goes crazy of the different things. Like his wife got sick,
Oh,
and it took her 6 months to get into the doctor.
yeah.
Okay. Had she gotten there within 6 weeks, her diagnosis would have been pretty easy. But by the time she got there, it had progressed to a point that it was serious. Now, thank God she got through it, but that's
Yeah.
what socialist policies are like.
Yeah,
And that's what
absolutely.
Canada's like. Canada's very, very, very liberal. I mean,
I can see that. I
they
can
would
see.
make California again look like MAGA. They really would.
Yeah, and that's right. It's like schedule your sickness for 6 months from now, right? And that's exactly how England operates, and France, and other places. You know what was really sad when I was in New York just a few days ago? Um, I walked by one of the, I guess, migrant shelters that was a brand new hotel near Wall Street.
Mhm.
That they basically took down all the signage and said this hotel is closed. When we knew, I mean, you saw who was hanging around outside, and also one of the
Right.
locals told me that that's where all the migrants are staying, in these beautiful hotels downtown by Wall Street. Then I walked 2 blocks up, and there's a homeless veteran sitting outside Whole Foods begging for $20 just so he can get a room that night. Okay. In the rain, and it's freezing out there.
Don't get me going on that one, girl. That's
You need to know the drink, Butch.
the 3 of us here, the audience needs to know that if you're not MAGA, you probably shouldn't be watching this show.
No,
But the
we're
3 of us here,
inclusive.
we are inclusive, but we're going to offend somebody. But this whole thing about immigrants before veterans is absolutely insane. And the number
How
one,
about
the
how
number
about the
one, well,
uh,
Illinois is the worst. They're tossing
well,
veterans who have been in their apartments for 8, 9 years out of their apartments to put in illegal immigrants. That's
hey,
ridiculous.
even more topical is the immigrants over North Carolinians. I mean,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
when you're sending $59 million to put the bill in New York for a luxury hotel, and you've got people freezing to death in tents up in North Carolina, that how is that happening in this
absolutely.
country?
And by the way,
Priorities.
it's still going on, Chris. It's still
I
going
know.
on. There's people up there that will not have electricity till March or April.
How is that even
Yeah,
possible? You're going through winters up there. I mean,
yeah.
I know.
Oh,
Look, priorities.
people
Look, I
people are
hope
still
Trump.
dying up there, Angie.
Are they?
Hmm.
Wow. We're not hearing
Yes.
those stories come out at all in the press. It's really sad.
Hmm.
Well,
I do have to tell you one thing. You remember about a week and a half ago when Trump flew to Asheville, North Carolina, and then
Hmm.
flew to California?
in his
He told
first
the
week in
people he
office.
correct. He told the people in Western North Carolina, you will have help immediately. And this is not a joke, okay? He brought in the Army Corps of Engineers inside of 48 hours, and they have been there ever since, just cleaning up the mess from Hurricane Helene.
We need to
But
see
it
those
took
images.
Trump doing it.
We need to
I've
see
got
Totally
those
agree.
some. I'll put
images.
them on X.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing what he's done. But up until that point, absolutely, these people were forgotten about, and it's ridiculous. I mean, here's the thing: they're Americans.
Hmm.
These people staying in the luxury hotels, I'm sorry, are not. They have no rights. They have no constitutional rights. They have no rights to our tax dollars for any
Hmm.
way, shape, or form. And
That's right.
that's where the real problem has come in. But I'm sure, and I'm going to go back to it, the libtards have back in the day found a way how to skim money off the top of that too.
So, do you
Hmm.
think that's the reason why we've let in over 13 million people cross the border since Joe Biden took office? I mean, what is the purpose? And I have various theories about this, and it's a lot of it is population and voting, et cetera, and the
Hmm.
census
Hmm.
of 2030. But why
100%.
do you think that's happening?
I think there's two reasons, Angie. I think number one reason you hit it, it's voting.
Hmm.
Okay.
Mhm.
They're trying to control the vote. They got absolutely bushwhacked this last election when the Latino turned out over 50% for Trump. They weren't
Yep.
expecting that. Okay. But thank God for that. All right. That's number one. And number two, they have found a way to skim money off of these programs. For instance, you create a 501c3 and you're Joe Biden, okay? And you got $50 million going to this immigration program. Well, maybe 20 goes there and 30 goes to the organization, and then it
Right.
disappears. And
Mm.
that's how this stuff is happening. Listen, I would love to have just the $40 million to do what Chris said earlier, to to go rebuild Western North Carolina mountains that they spent on supposedly, which I don't believe, Big Bird in Iraq.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
$40 million would go a hell of a long ways over in Western North Carolina.
Do
You
you
know.
think that? Oh, sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no, please, Angie.
Do you think that all this leads to the ultimate answer, which is what I think by finding all this money, all this fat, all this ridiculousness, especially the overseas spending, do you think that
Mhm.
ultimately Trump is I mean, Trump's after his legacy right now, right? He's looking to clean up all the
Right.
Democrat smears that's
Hmm.
been done to him and his
Yep.
family and all his disciples around him. Do you think the ultimate answer that he's going to leave America is zero income tax? Because we're
That'd be
gonna not
awesome.
need it after all this,
I
right?
think I think there's a good chance of that. It's funny you say that, but I think, and Chris, I'll let you jump in here in a minute, but I think there's a good chance of that. Think of the trillions of dollars that they've already found. They found almost $1 trillion just in aid, U.S. aid. Okay. That's just one organization. There are hundreds of government organizations out there pulling this same crap. Okay.
Hmm.
I mean, the rumors have been going on Ukraine for well over a couple
Oh,
of years that, hey, we're giving 60 billion to Ukraine, and Zelensky's kicking
Yeah.
back 40 billion to Biden. You know, and there's no accounting for this. Yeah, Angie, I think that's exactly what's going to happen, and that's one reason he's trying to even out the tariffs. You charge us 20%, we're going to charge you 20%. Well, what does that do? That takes the tariff out of the price.
Mm-hmm.
That takes the tax out of the price.
That's right.
So
well,
I think you got something. Chris, what's your thought?
I think that the one thing that jumped out at me was when Angie was saying that she hasn't heard about what's going on in North Carolina, or that there is this still this lingering thing, and I think it goes back to I don't know why today, but I'm stuck on culture for some reason. But the culturally, I think the narrative has to change, and that the press is us, right? If it weren't for Elon buying X and for us to have the freedom to be able to put these stories out there, the things that are going on for real and not being censored, then we would have a whole lot different election than what we had. Because the media is still trying the same old things. Now, one of my favorites that I love listening to is talking about this is the Rock'em Sock'em presidency, where every time they throw out an EO, there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one, and it's happening at such a pace that the freak out can't happen. Because when they start freaking out, they didn't realize there were 5 more things that just got put in while they were freaking about the one thing that was really not that big of a deal.
That's right.
But 4 years ago, it would have been. The biggest gift we got was the stolen election in 2020, because it allowed Trump to
100%
sit back,
agree.
put the chess play pieces on the board and go, okay, when they do this, we're going to do that. When they do this other thing, we're going to do that. So it put that out there. Speaking of, have you seen the Rachel Maddow, of all people, Moscow Maddow herself was going on last week about the $441 million going to Elon Musk's Tesla company for the armored division within the military, and it was that was just this whole smear, same as always, same smear that oh, Trump's cronies are getting their piece of the pie and all that, and that was a Biden administration initiative. It had nothing to do with Trump. That was signed before Trump was ever in office. They can't stop themselves. I mean, Chuck Schumer with his Corona and his little avocado, and trying to get all the bleeding heart liberals to jump on board with how bad this thing's going to be, and it lasted 36 hours, right, with Mexico. So, anyway,
Chris, exactly what you said. The amazing part to me is the Democrats just got their butts handed to them, and they're doing the same. They're using the same playbook that got them beat to hell. That amazes me. If somebody keeps punching me in the face, I'm coming from a different angle to try not to get punched in the face. But they're not. They're putting their face right out there and going, hit me. And it just, listen, everybody says, oh, we got 2 years, we got 2 years. And I understand where they're coming from, because normally that is true. The Democrats are handling this defeat so poorly. I believe 2 years will be a bigger ass kicking than it was in 2024. And
I
I
agree,
truly
but
believe that, unless
it's almost
something
like
major changes on the Democratic side.
They can't
it's almost
organize
like
themselves. They can't get it
it,
together. They're just like crying every day. It's like a blessing to watch.
It's just they scream and yell, and they do the same stuff that got them beat, got their butts beat back in November. All right, let's go to the next thing. And this is one that the media right now is really trying to bury. But it has come out that it's absolutely true. They don't know who yet, but they're investigating. And that is someone in the FBI tipped off, and I don't remember the name of the Venezuelan group. Angie, do you know the name of that Venezuelan group?
Tris something.
Try
Yes.
the agua or
Okay,
something.
Yes,
Like that.
thank you.
that group there you go. Tipped them off in Colorado.
Thank you.
So when ICE got there, they were gone, and then
Nice.
tipped them off in New York. And when ICE got there you go, Angie.
My
They were
husband
gone.
just handed me a glass of, what is this, Japanese whiskey?
All right. that a boy.
David's the best.
So anyway, here we are. They know for sure it came out of FBI. Now, I have a very different feeling than most people when it comes to the FBI. Okay. The one thing I'm not necessarily a Kash Patel fan, but the one thing I agree with him is shut it down. And here's why. If you go back in history, I'm a big history guy, the FBI has been crooked as long as it's been in existence, all the way back to J. Edgar Hoover. And it hasn't gotten better, it's gotten worse. And when
That's
we've
true.
got criminal gangs that are raping, killing, looting people, being tipped off by the FBI, it's time to shut them down. Just start from scratch.
With all
What do you
agencies,
got,
but
Angie?
especially the FBI. Look, I was talking to former Special Agent Tim Fitzsimmons, and he was telling me about all his
Okay.
colleagues doing early retirements or just trying to get the hell out of there because some of there are good people in the DOJ, good people in
Sure.
CIA, FBI. They're real patriots. They can't do their jobs because top
Right.
down is what's happening, right? It's the senior advisors that are getting their talking points from previous administrations that they couldn't actually perform their job. And so what we've learned is that there's a lot of look, one of the things that I learned from this former special agent is that during the interview process, if they even sniff that they could be pro-Trump, and this is back in the Biden days, if they were even a little bit sympathetic to Trump, you're not getting hired. That was a hiring requirement that you cannot be pro-Trump. And I think that was, it's interesting where the mechanisms are, right? It's the HR, it's the teachers' colleges, it's all those kind of gatekeepers into the government, and all that is being let loose now. Now, I have no doubt that Kash Patel is going to get confirmed, hopefully next week. But look what Democrats did. They threw everything at them. They threw, they went through his finances. They got the courts involved. They got the Senate to delay. This is a really good learning lesson for all of us and for future issues going on. They don't control any of the branches of government anymore. And they're just learning about this now. They don't have the White House. They don't have the Senate. They don't have Congress. They have a few judges left over. Okay, well, thank you for calling out who the corrupt judges are, because now we're going to go after them. And we're going to go after anyone who just doesn't allow the administration to go forward. This is Trump's pick. He's going to get all of them. I think it's going to be a 10-10.
Well, let's
No?
go back to the FBI here for a second.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, Angie. I do. The one I really questioned was Kennedy, and he squeaked through. So, I think at that point we're good. I think Patel's going to be the same way. He's going to squeak through. It's not going to be easy for Patel. Okay, but here you have the FBI. Trump has an assassination attempt on his life. Here we are in February, 6 months later? And we don't know a damn thing more today than we know the day it happened.
It's true.
Now, what is wrong with that situation? This is a guy who was the president, was running for president, and is now the president, and we have absolutely zero answers on an assassination attempt back in Butler, Pennsylvania, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was August. And so, and that's FBI.
Well, I don't want to have to wrestle you backstage here, Butch, but I'm a huge fan of Cash. I've been doing a lot of studying on Cash, and but I think he does that. He, like what Angie was saying, he brings that. No, it stops here. This is it. Now, he did all that investigation for the Russiagate stuff, and he has the dirt and all the stuff that couldn't come to light. He has inside information. He has great, let's say, swamp wisdom, and knows how to navigate the swamp better than most because he was part of it. He was inside of it and had been under multiple administrations, not just Trump.
No, I agree with you on that.
So I think, though, we're going to have to absolutely take that thing down to the studs. And I agree with his initial reaction. I think it was him with Glenn Beck when he was talking about, we need to turn it into a museum and move people out into the. There is a
Take the
United
building and
States.
turn it into a museum and shut
How
it
about
down, is what he
yeah? How
said. And
about
I
the?
agree.
We should turn that into the J6 Memorial.
Ah, that's even better. Yeah, here's
That's
the
even
gross.
better.
Here's what gross waste of federal resources and an inside coup of the United States. This is what happens whenever you do that. I love that. Angie, by the way, before this
Yeah.
ends, I have to tell you the greatest um, Japanese whiskey story ever. But
Ooh, yes. As I sip. I mean, this is kicking in, by the way, you guys.
Good.
It's not doing very
Good.
well for my political career, but I don't care. This is
hey,
delicious
Hey, our
whiskey.
our our veterans podcast one day is we're going to get certain individuals together, and we're all going to have a podcast and drink on the podcast. So
Ah,
that's Angie.
nice.
You help me come up with that one, Angie.
I love it. We're gonna do a nice. Well, look. Well. Before, I mean, I want to hear Chris's opinion on Japanese whiskey,
Yeah,
but we
absolutely.
got to thank you, Butch and Eileen, for your leadership for getting all of us together.
absolutely.
I mean, it's a weird way how we all discovered each other and found each other, but
It
you
really is.
actually brought us all in, and now look, we're making. We took lemons and we're making lemonade, right? We're having a great
Yep,
podcast.
we are.
Obviously, one of the funnest podcasts I've been on in a long time. Usually, podcasts are just so stoic. This one's like
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
get to drink and talk politics. Are you kidding me? This is like the best Monday night ever. Oh, happy President's Day,
Here's the
everyone.
great here's the
Oh
greatest thing
yeah.
about here's the greatest thing about having Trump back again. We don't have to worry about what we say because we might um, upset somebody who's one
Mhm.
tenth of 1% of the population. We just we're able to now call things the way we see them and not have to worry about the repercussions unless we get stupid about it. But I'm so sick of having to tiptoe around these freak groups that I'm
Mhm.
glad it's over. I am so glad it's
Yeah.
over. It's yeah, I'm an old man now, but I'll tell you what, this has been ridiculous of what's went on in the last 20 years, quite frankly. With the exception of Trump. So um let's take it to the next one real quick.
Wait, no, no,
Let's
no.
jump
Wait.
over to
Oh,
We
let's
Ukraine.
need
go.
to talk about whiskey for a second. Let's take a commercial break and talk
Oh,
about
wait.
whiskey.
Chris, go to the whiskey thing and then the Japanese whiskey, and then we're going to jump over to Ukraine.
All right, I didn't want to derail us, but yeah, that's fine. So, this is a great story. So, in the I travel in the corporate world. That's my game. I'm the one of the head nerds for one of the largest technology companies out there, right? And so, I get to do a lot of events, and so one of them was a golf event that we had in Atlanta, and it was at one of the nicest golf courses in all of Atlanta, right? And so the CIO of, let's say, one of the largest companies in Atlanta, there are several, but you can probably imagine, um, the CIO decided that he was going to play one hole and then everybody would continue on. And so, but you got to play a hole with the CIO. That way, every group got to spend a minute or two with the CIO. I thought it was a very classy thing. Well, I was riding with his senior leader for infrastructure, and he was driving the cart that I was in. And I was there to kind of entertain and talk and, do all the things. Well, anyway, the CIO gives a care package to each one of his leaders, which my guy was one of them, and they had this water bottle that was really nice, decorative with their company logo on it, and it was filled with Japanese whiskey. And
Oh,
and so
I know where
um,
this is going.
this guy just started hitting the bottle like directly, like it's like water. We're on hole
Ooh.
two. We've only played two holes, and this guy. So we get to the turn, and the other guys that were in my group were like, "Hey, guy, dude, I think your cart mate is trashed." And I was like, "I know, but I didn't want to be disrespectful and tell the customer, let me take a, it was an awkward situation." Anyway, we're playing best ball, and this is where you drive up to, the ball that's shorter, and you pick it up. Well, he's driving to pick up his ball. He falls out of the cart and
How do
runs
you do
himself
that?
over
How do you do
in a
that?
golf cart. It's a talent that I've
Oh
never
Lord.
seen or witnessed again. But I will say, when we left that event, needless to say, I drove because he was injured, and I was like, "Well, I got you, no problem." We dropped him at his car, and he saw four of them, and he was just trying to figure out how to get his bag into the trunk, and it was just this. It was it was, oh my gosh. And every event since, and this is, but gosh, been 10, 15 years ago, they asked me, my sales director, he said, "Hey, how did you leave that situation? I mean, that's kind of awkward." And I told him, I said, "Did you see the scene in Caddyshack where the priest gets struck by lightning, and Bill Murray just kind of lays the golf clubs down and walks away? That's how I treated it right there."
Wow. Well, now it's inspiring me to host, if you don't mind, national president of VFAF, the first veteran golf day. Maybe we'll do it at Trump Doral in one of his properties. I would love to invite
Oh, that'd
all
be fun.
your state heads
Hey,
once a year to drink
That'd be fun.
Japanese whiskey or American whiskey. I don't care what whiskey. Whiskey's good
let's
for
do it.
me. And play a little golf. Although I'm terrible,
Hey,
I'll just be drinking.
Hey,
Angie.
my
So
my wife's
with
my
the
wife's just learning, so you won't be the only one.
All right.
if if the national president doesn't, Georgia and Florida hook up. We'll take
Yeah.
care of
There you go.
it.
Yeah, we'll all go down there. We'll all go down there. Okay, let's move on to Trump not including Europe in the talks with Russia and Ukraine. Now, if anybody watched over the weekend, Vance was over in Europe. He pissed
Hmm.
off the entire continent of Europe, but in my opinion, in a good way. He basically told them it's not going to be the way it's been for the last, since World War II, people. We're not
Hmm.
financing you anymore. We're not going to
Hmm.
listen to your crap anymore. If we're paying, it's going to be our way.
Yep.
I kind of like that. Okay. And
Hmm.
then Trump says, they yesterday a reporter asked him, "Is Ukraine going to have a seat at the table?" And he said, "Eventually, yes."
Really? He said that? Oh, I didn't know that. I
He
thought they said no. Okay.
eventually, no, eventually, yes. They plan on meeting with Russia first. Then
Huh.
they plan on
Hmm.
meeting with Ukraine. Then they
Uh-huh.
plan on bringing the two together. Europe's not going to be involved at all. And Europe is throwing a fit, which I think is absolutely hilarious.
Huh.
Angie, what do you think of that?
I'm just trying to make sense of this right now. Well, the last I that maybe my news is a little bit too old then, because the last I heard that Trump was creating a summit and with Russia, but wasn't inviting Ukraine. But I could have read that in the leftist news, and maybe they left out a couple of points. Clearly, the European Union is the problem, right? They want this war. Why? The
Sure,
same the
sure it
same
is.
reason why Americans, or rather, American contractors want this war. They need the money. This is their flow.
Hmm.
This is their livelihoods.
Hmm.
More
Right.
money goes into the defense industries than anyone else in all countries. So for them to have that pipeline shut down, they're losing their minds. I mean, how great is this president? Just like, yeah, I know we all praise Trump, but like seriously, he doesn't care. This is not about money for him. This is not about power even for him. This is the right thing to do. This is how governance works, you guys. This is why it's so good. Now,
Hmm.
I think that I think he sourced the problem. I think Trump and JD Vance sourced the problem, which is it's not Zelensky. It may not even be Putin. It's
Hmm.
probably the European Union. Now, I'm trying to like connect all the dots here because you just told me a mouthful that I didn't even know, and I don't understand exactly what it's about. But cutting out the EU is a very, very good idea. Well,
Hmm.
I get that this is within their neighborhood, and they care about their neighborhood.
Right.
But the truth is, they might be causing the problem. I don't connect the dots just yet, but Trump and his administration is a lot smarter than me.
My understanding is, and this I heard from conservative news, but my understanding of it is that the Trump administration is basically going to tell Ukraine, you're going to lose some property, you're going to lose some land, and this is how it's going to go down, and you're not going to be part of NATO ever, and they're not going to give them a whole hell of a lot of choice because they're also going to tell them we're not financing you anymore.
Right. Right.
Oh, that's Chris. What's your thought on this?
So there's a couple of thoughts, and I guess the first one is, um, look, if you're at a charity event or some kind of event, and there's a raffle, and you go in and you just slap down, 500, or $1,000 on tickets, you own the most tickets, and you're probably going to win whatever the raffle is, right? I think we bought enough raffle tickets to have that right to be able to negotiate with both parties. We've given more than any country's given, and that is, obviously something we don't agree with politically. But you know what? Let's leverage the investment. So if we can end this thing, we're going to leverage what we invested in, and we're going to see this thing go, and it's going to go the way we want it to. No influence from anybody else. I totally agree. And JD's speech over in
Right.
Germany was
Yeah.
brilliant, and
It
the
was
fact that
great.
It was
and the fact
brilliant.
that
He pissed off.
ABC
He pissed off the entire continent of Europe, but it was awesome.
and
And
It
he's
and you
was.
know the
39 years old, you guys. I mean, how great is that? He's just
I
like
know.
telling it to them.
He's
so
younger
when
than
I
my son.
so my one of my commanders, he used to say, when I was still serving, he said that the definition of diplomacy is the ability to tell somebody to go screw themselves and have them enjoy the trip, and
Oh,
that is exactly what JD
I
Vance did.
like that.
that's
I
really
like that.
good. I wish I could have those talents. I really do. No, I love it. Look, I mean, they as of again, my information might be a little bit old, but no, sorry, rather Zelensky was told to give Putin what the territory that he wants in trade of
Hmm.
something else.
Hmm.
And I think that, look, I have no skin in this fight. I think that might have to happen just to make this conflict go away. Clearly, Zelensky,
Agreed.
he's got all the mansions in the world in Miami right now. He doesn't need any more.
Does
It's
he
like,
really?
go away, go away.
So the question,
All right.
one of the
Go
points
ahead. Go
I
ahead, Chris.
wanted to make, this is Angie made a great point. But the thing that really kind of gets to me is whenever you start looking at Zelensky and his, at one, there's no look, the biggest thing the Democrats ran over and over and over again about this last election was the fact that we were going to lose our democracy, 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 democracy. And I don't think they know what that term means, because
I
right
know.
now Ukraine does not have a democracy. Because
No.
they haven't had an election. The key to a democracy, though, is that what the people say goes. And the people in Ukraine, they voted to go with Russia and the areas that Russia was occupying. And therefore,
Right.
that is a democratic process that happened. And now I know it's not that simple. However, I do think that if democracy is the goal, then they need to follow the democratic process and let the people speak.
And you know what, Chris? It really is that simple. If you're going to talk the game, then you got to back it up.
Hmm.
You can't say one thing and then do something else. So if you're going to talk democracy, and I know where you're talking, the areas that they voted to go with Russia, then you're
Hmm.
right. That needs to happen. All right, we're
Right.
going to end this. We're going to skip our last thing, but we're going to end this on kind of a light note here, guys. Okay. Um, I love what Elon Musk is doing, and I love
Mm.
what Trump is letting him do. Okay.
Mhm.
But I got to tell you, when I watch a news feed with little X on his shoulders, it's really hard to take him serious. I have a hard time taking him serious.
Why?
Chris,
Okay.
what's your thought on that?
Are you kidding me? That's the next generation, Butch. Isn't that okay? So, and I'll put this in a political context.
Yeah,
Um, Trump took the blacks. He took black men. He took Latinos. He's
Mhm.
dabbling in the
absolutely.
Asians. The last group the
Mhm.
Democrats control is the youth, right?
Mhm.
And that's why
Mhm.
his entire cabinet is very young. They're all like mostly in the 30s and 40s. You have a few in the 50s, but they're very like full energy, young, the
Yeah,
opposite of the Biden administration, which is like sleepy. Joe goes. I mean, he sleeps, on the beaches of Delaware. I mean, it is such a contrast. So, to bring on the younger generation, it's exactly what Trump needs. Even if little X is 3 months old, like it's the next generation.
Well, you know
That's
what?
he's trying to prepare for.
That's actually a really good point, because if you watch the Daytona 500 yesterday,
Yes.
Trump went to the Daytona 500, and who did he have with him? His granddaughter, Caroline.
Right. This
So
is the
that's
next
a good
legacy,
point.
guys. He is
Yeah.
destroying the Democratic Party. You see them coming out at the seams.
He is.
I mean, I'm going to make an early prediction that the Democratic Party can't survive this. Not for a while, not for another generation. You're going to see that proven during the midterms. They can't control themselves. That's why
I
Maxine
agree with
Waters
you
is
on
out
that.
there screaming her head off, is because they've lost control. And I love it. And one of the things that I'm doing as a political consultant is to push that agenda and to make sure that we do win the midterms. Because here's the problem: if we're gonna skip history and what happens historically with data, if we win the midterms, Trump does not get a third impeachment, and
I
that is
agree.
exactly what they have planned.
Yeah,
And we know
totally.
that
Oh,
now.
sure they do. They were already talking about it.
Oh yeah, I mean they're
So,
already trying to throw the articles on the floor with Jamie Raskin, and it's laughable.
Right.
So be prepared, you guys. The midterms is going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a fight worth fighting for. And honestly, we have great players coming on board. I've been flying around to 3 different cities so far, meeting with candidates to jump into these races because we need to street fight, and we're gonna hit them so hard they can't get back up.
so
Oh, I
I want
agree.
to
Chris,
once
what's your
again,
thoughts on this? And we're going to wrap it up here.
yeah, once again, I want to strangle you for stepping on what I was going to bring up with Trump and the granddaughter. No, it's all good. The
Sorry, brother.
Hey, if you want to go down the rabbit hole, though, check this out. Okay, look, I get my information from some weird places, and that's what makes me well-rounded, um, tongue in cheek. But one of the things that I found, all right, so if you look at Trump has called this the golden age, right? The golden age. He's coined that,
Yeah.
right? And all right, so follow me here. His granddaughter yesterday wore ruby red slippers. She also had a white dress with a rainbow. Okay,
Saw the
somewhere over the
rainbow in the white
rainbow.
dress. I didn't see the
All right,
slippers.
all right. The ruby red slippers. Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Oz. OZ is the measurement for gold. The golden age. Golden yellow brick road. Follow me.
Yeah.
You see what I'm putting down?
Yeah.
All right. So I think there was
That's
some
cute.
little setup.
Ooh,
Plus, if you
I'm a little bit dumb tonight. What does that mean?
Okay, so one of the big that's where I was going. One of the biggest tweets this weekend from Doge was talking about auditing the gold reserves and looking at the gold
Yes.
reserves.
Yes. Yeah, right. And you know what's happening, Chris, behind the scenes? Whatever the equivalent of the UK gold reserves is, they're flying back the gold bars.
I
We
know.
don't have the money, guys. We don't have
Hmm.
the money to support
Hmm.
all of our banking systems. We know
Hmm.
that Biden, before he left, he was
Hmm.
planting some sort of financial crisis for Trump. We knew that it was,
Hmm.
and that's why the banks, like Bank of America, for example, laid off almost 20% of their employees. There was a lot
Right.
of stuff happening in the banking system that we don't know about. We're not fully going digital. Forget all the crap. Our banking system is actually in crisis, and we're going to see that in Q2, maybe Q3, Q4. But that's one of the booby traps that was left. So they're flying gold bars into our country right
Hmm.
now. And it
Hmm.
is weird. I don't understand finance. As I told you, I'm terrible at math. There's something happening there. We have to watch it.
I totally agree.
Do.
I just thought that was pretty fascinating when you go
Well,
down that little rabbit hole.
let's
We're going down the
wrap this
rabbit hole
up.
tonight.
Angie, I hope you'll join Chris and I again.
All the time,
Oh,
And
every
please.
day.
I would ask that everybody stay on when we end recording here, so we can get this downloaded before you get off.
You
And
betcha.
thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And this is America at Play, and we're out.
Thank you, guys. Bye.